AAA studios have struggled for years to create realistic environments. I mean, how do you plant vegetation to make it look natural? How do I arrange my vegetation to make it look like real life? Well, J Money's here, and we're going to take a stab at dynamic vegetation today. In this video, we're going to utilize Lumberyard's dynamic vegetation sample to implement dynamic vegetation into a scene. We're also going to learn how to generate level terrain and use environment probes to flesh out our lighting. Come with me as we enter the world of dynamic vegetation. Let's get it started. Let's go to our tools menu and find our entity inspector. Next, we're going to find our entity outliner. Next thing we're going to find is our asset browser. And last but not least, we'll have our level inspector up here. This is how we're going to add our dynamic vegetation system to our level. Alright, let's get into it, folks. First things first, we're going to need terrain, but not just any terrain. We're going to attempt to create a small mountain range. So let's grab our terrain editor real quick. And we're going to go ahead and set our terrain height in between 200 and 300. This helps so you can have an understanding of what it's going to look like once it's done. Next is Tools, Generate Terrain. We're going to accept the defaults there, and look what we have now. We have a beautiful computer-generated terrain. Dynamic Vegetation, here we go. To start us off, we're going to create an entity. We're going to call that entity Coverage. We're then going to create two child entities under that same entity. We're going to name these Shape, and we're going to name the other one Noise. Let's get this name changed to Noise. Nope. There we go. N-O-I-S-E, Noise. Cool. So the next thing for us to do will be to assign a new component to our coverage entity. We're going to grab the vegetation layer spawner, as well as the items that come along with it, including the vegetation asset list and the vegetation reference shape components. While we're at it, we're going to pick two different plant assets in our layer spawner just so we can give our dynamic plot a little bit of variety. So let's hop over to our shape entity, and we're going to assign a box shape component to it. Box, there we go. Click on that. Very nice. Alright, we're going to go over to coverage entity, and we're going to add the vegetation asset weight selector component. After that, we can grab our noise entity as well and add the fast noise component to it. In the fast noise component, remember to assign your noise type to fractal simplex. We're also going to add the required components that come along with that, including the gradient transform modifier and the vegetation reference shape. So after we got that good, we should hop up to our coverage entity. We're going to find our layer priority under the vegetation layer spawner. We're going to change that to background. Once we do that, we're going to navigate to our vegetation asset reference, and we're going to target the shape component. Also in the coverage entity, locate the vegetation asset weight selector and target the noise entity after that. Once we got that done, we should be able, one sec, yep, that looks good. We should be able to expand our land and see how it comes out. So let's pull a little bit. Oh, look at that. We are good to move on to the next portion of the tutorial. Alright, well, real quick before we jump into the next section, I wanted to take some time to show you this preview image on the fast noise gradient. If you look at this image right here and do your adjusting of the settings, you can actually see it reflected in the game view. This is going to be really handy for really wanting to visualize what you're changing in your environment. Okay, now we're getting ready to put the finishing touches on our scene. So let's jump up to the Tools menu and find the Time of Day selection. We're then going to go over to the right side of the table, and we're going to choose a sunlight color. Something not too strong, but just enough of the color to kind of make it more realistic, bring out a lot of the scenery. I think that's going to do fine. Yeah, I like that color. So I went ahead and created new assets and put them in there. So I'm going to unhide these assets. They were just added for just scenery, just to create a better scene, make it look more decrepit. Okay, so next up is our environment probes. We're going to create an entity, and we're going to call that environment probe. We'll take that entity, we'll duplicate that a couple times because we're going to have 3 of these different environment probes. So let's rename that. Rename that guy. Nice. All right, we're going to go to our first probe, and we're going to grab it, and we're going to have to manually position it into place. Try to do that in a spot with less light. I know that sounds weird, but we want to catch the smaller pockets of light with this environment probe so we can actually reflect that out. So let's put it right in front of them. I think that looks good right there, actually. Yeah, move that to the left. Looking good. Oh, not close enough. Yeah, okay. Now we're going to add our environment probe component. Once we have that, we're going to scroll down to the bottom of it. We're going to hit generate. And then we're going to hit Control S to save. And like that, it starts to generate the environment probe lighting. We're going to go ahead and do the same with the next two objects. So we're going to take one of the other probes, navigate it over here, maneuver it just in the right spot. Right here. Let's move it a tad. Okay. Now we'll add environment probe to that. Do the same thing as the first one. We're going to hit generate, and then we're going to hit Control S to save. All right, it's coming together a little bit. One more to go. Let's grab the environment probe for that third one. And place it into position. Let's see, move it over just a tad. The only bummer about this process is the manual movement that you have to do sometimes. Add an environment probe to him. And we're going to go down and hit generate, then hit Control S to save. And let's take a look, actually, at how it's looking. There we go, guys. Well, this has added the environment lighting probes to our scene. Well, that about does it for my dynamic vegetation tutorial. How's everybody feeling? Hopefully you're feeling pretty good. I hope you learned something in this video, and I also hope that you yourself are gearing up to create your own lively scene, complete with dynamic vegetation. Also, for any of you hungry developers out there, hit up my friend John Diaz on the official Lumberyard YouTube channel for even more content and even more tutorials. This is J Money, once again, signing off.